Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will start the meeting in 20 seconds. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates. I now call to order the plenary of the second session of the ad hoc open-ended working group on a science policy panel to contribute further to the sound management of chemicals and waste and to prevent pollution. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, we had quite some time yesterday to continue our work in contact groups 1 on scope, functions, operating principles and conflict of interest, as well as in contact group 2 on institutional arrangements and relationship with key stakeholders. And I understand that also an informal consultation with contact group 3 was held to within the context of contact group 2 to discuss on an exchange of views on the products, the deliverables, so to speak, of the panel, as well as the different types of experts that we have in mind when we are discussing. So what I would like to do is that we would invite the co-facilitators of those contact groups to provide us with an update on the work so far. I do see that, oh, I think that was a mistake. So having that said, so we are on agenda item 4. Ghana, do you want to take the floor to fill us in on the work achieved in contact group 1? So Sam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dear delegates and friends, good morning. Madam Chair, I'm happy to report on the outcomes of the discussion of contact group 1. The group met several times throughout the day yesterday, morning, afternoon, and evening. At this first session for the day, the conflict of interest policy continued to be discussed. The co-facilitators invited representatives from IPCC and the Ozone Secretariat to share information and experiences regarding their conflict of interest policies. Following an exchange of questions and answers, the group returned to the text under discussion during our previous sessions. Member states proceeded to discuss Section A of the conflict of interest proposed in INF 10 Add 1, including a second reading of the session wherein some of the brackets were removed and insertions were agreed. Madam Chair, the group will require additional time to conclude on the remaining divergent viewpoints that have been observed, as well as to further discuss Annex A. The outcome document from the discussion was uploaded to the website, and the contact group co-facilitators recommend 2 90-minute sessions to finalize considerations of the conflict of interest policy in order to further advance on the mandate and consider international work to be considered by Contact Group 4. Madam Chair, regarding operating principles, I would like to remind delegates that the mandate of the group was to develop a draft proposal on operating principles based on INF 10, including to identify principles that are missing. The initial list of potential missing elements was significantly streamlined during the discussion yesterday. 5 elements were added to the operating principles in INF 10. The group later undertook a first reading of the operating principles of INF 10 with proposals for removing of or additional text and a discussion. The remaining document was posted to the website. Madam Chair, the contact group co-facilitators similarly recommend 90 additional minutes to further discuss the operating principles and to consider intersessional work to be considered by Contact Group 4. In the evening, the contact group met to discuss capacity building for a first time. Views were exchanged regarding what various member states consider important with respect to a capacity building function. No consensus in the room could be reached, and further consultations in the form of a bilateral meeting was proposed to carry on the discussion. If there have been progress made amongst the relevant member states, the co-facilitators recommend some time be afforded on capacity building. Finally, Madam Chair, as part of our mandate, the group will need some time to consider the scope and objective of the panel. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the kind attention.
Thank you very much for that update, as well as to be also very concrete in your suggestions for the time that you may need in your discussions to move forward. I would like to have an, let's say, overall overview of where we stand before I would suggest a way forward. But what I do like to note is that it would be good, well, to keep in mind that today will be the last day for us to finalize the work in the contact group, so that we also have due time to consider the outcome of what you're considering in the contact group. Also keeping in mind the understanding that we had is that the outcome of our considerations during this meeting will be the starting point for the work undertaken during the next meeting, and that there may be further changes requested to the documents that we have as an outcome for this meeting. And also that these outcomes would be used to fill the skeleton outline as we had agreed earlier in this meeting. I would now like to invite the co-facilitators from Contact Group 2 on institutional arrangements and relationships with key stakeholders to also provide us with a summary of their deliberations. And I see that Ms. Judith Torres from Uruguay will update us. Uruguay, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. The contact group met 3 times in 3 sessions during Wednesday to consider institutional arrangements, more specifically the plenary bureau, secretariat, subsidiary body, and financial arrangements, as well as the section D of the INF 10 on the evaluation of the operational effectiveness and impact of the panel. The contact group started with a text on secretariat. The afternoon session dealt with evaluation of the operational effectiveness and the impact of the panel, and began the discussion on interdisciplinary expert committee and other bodies, their memberships and functions. Several subsidiary bodies were proposed with a specific language. There were some discussions on whether it was more constructive to list the key subsidiary bodies of the panel or whether it was better to leave the subsidiary bodies open to be defined by the panel at a later stage and primarily highlight the potential functions of the future subsidiary bodies. We invited the co-facilitators of Contact Group 3 to collect views on the type of expertise that could be needed for subsidiary bodies to deliver specific deliverables. The co-facilitator of we as co-facilitators also invited participants to explain the institutional arrangements of other science policy interfaces. The last session discussed about financial arrangements and invited the contact group to think about the possible intersessional work that we need further. In that regard, my co-chair and I ask if it's possible to have at least 2 sessions to consider what is left, that is strategic partnerships and the work in the intersessional process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that update. I understand from your request that you have made quite considerable progress in your group. So thank you very much for that. And I assume that it would be possible to provide you with 2 time slots to finalize the work in your group today. So that for now finalizes, I think, the updates under agenda item 4. And I would, unless there's any requests for the floor, I would suggest that we go to agenda. No, sorry, I skipped now an update that we that could also work for us. I would like to invite also Contact Group 3 that was working on work-related processes and procedures to provide us with an update on the exchange of views that they held informally within Contact Group 2, and provide us with an update on where they stand and how they wish to take the work forward. So I understand that it is Juliet from Lesotho that would provide the update. Lesotho, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As it was agreed in plenary yesterday, Contact Group 2 was accommodating in its afternoon session and did allow for some reflection on aspects of the work of Contact Group 3. The group provided initial reflections on the type of deliverables that the panel would produce and the type of expertise that would be needed. Ideas were exchanged on these aspects. However, discussions kept drifting towards the functions of the panel and the subsidiary bodies the panel would require to execute these functions, which was a clear indication of the interlinkages of the work of both contact groups. We are grateful for a fruitful discussion which has been very helpful in providing some clarity when considering the mandate of Contact Group 3. In that regards, Madam Chair, we are in your hands as to when that would be. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that update and also for informing and maybe showing the linkages between the different elements of the work that is in front of us. Given the updates received from Contact Group 1 and 2, I'm quite convinced that it would be possible to provide you with time to further your work today. Having said that, it would be good to have a full picture on where we stand. So what my understanding is that both contact groups are making all three contact groups have started their work. 2 of them have made considerable progress, but would need some time. Would also need some time to identify possible intercessional work. Similarly, you indicated that it would be good to also start your work. Now there is room to carry that. So I would also invite you to also make use of the time in your group to identify possible intercessional work, but certainly we can provide you with time to consider the elements that are included in with information 10 as a basis for your discussions. I see that Nigeria is asking for the floor. Nigeria, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving me the floor. And I'm taking the floor on behalf of the African Group. The African Group commend the hard work of the co-facilitators and acknowledge that they may be under pressure to deliver their mandate. However, we would like to appeal to them to strictly follow the rules of their engagement and be fair to all regions and delegations as they moderate the affairs of their respective contact group. Madam Chair, the African Group have observed behavior of deliberate sidelining and watering down of our regional viewpoints in certain contact groups. In multilateral discussions such as this, all member states and stakeholders should be given an opportunity and chance to be heard, and every idea should be given due consideration. We have seen outright rejections of ideas raised by our region when we respond or clarification to other parties in certain contact groups. We feel that whoever facilitates small groups and contact groups should understand the minimum norms expected from that position. Respect for the entertainment of ideas, regardless of who the person is and which country or region said it, is a must. We expect adherence to this principle for all stakeholders at all times and under all circumstances. Madam Chair, capacity building is very important to the African region, and therefore we would like to request for more time to discuss it further in Contact Group 1. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for that, Nigeria, and certainly what you said would reflect my guidance to the co-facilitators, and I did note down the request from the co-facilitators of Contact Group 1 to also provide time to further discuss on capacity building. I also understand that informal consultations are going on, so I would certainly encourage you to find time, maybe during lunch, to further those informal consultations so that you could maybe accelerate the discussions in the time that you would be allowed in Contact Group 1. And now I have on the floor China. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thanks to your efforts, we feel that the efficiency of each contact group has been greatly improved yesterday. We appreciate the efforts of you, most of the coordinators, as well as delegates. Secondly, we generally acknowledge the work done by Secretariat in preparing meeting materials in advance. In the remaining fewer than 2 days, we suggest that the discussion should be further focused, including subjects such as sound, chemical, and waste management, supporting capacity building in developing countries, and also on the premise that time and quality of the meeting is guaranteed, we should also fully explain the reasons and relevant considerations for specific modifications of opinions. Under the circumstances, we should try to foster consensus. The slogan of peace, dignity, equality on a healthy planet is clearly written on the United Nations website. I think that's also the goal and the basic principle that we need to follow. Here, I want to make it clear that specific coordinators of the contact group yesterday did not seriously respond to the opinions expressed by our delegation on the subject of conflict of interest. This is a wrong approach that is treating different delegations in an unequal manner. Later, we were apologized, but we still want to emphasize that such wrong approaches should not happen again. We also hope the conference will record such content. Lastly, all the countries in the world are facing serious challenges in chemicals and waste. No one can be immune to these problems. This is a common consensus. Therefore, we approach that let us work together to build a community of shared future for the mankind, focus on the sound management of chemicals and waste to jointly build a clean and beautiful world. I thank you.
Thank you, China, and let me make it clear that indeed our process is to take into account the views of all countries expressed and work together towards a common understanding. And certainly all countries should have an opportunity to have their views also be reflected. I'm quite sure, and I think there may have been misunderstandings, that the co-facilitators have reached out to you, as you indicated, and I have all trust that this is a one-off incident and that you can carry your way forward during the future meetings. I now have on the a request from Angola. Angola, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We understand that you have a very complicated mission. By the time being, today is already Thursday, and tomorrow we have to close the meeting. And the contact groups are the ones who will feed our work with substance. But we have been seeing in the last meetings, in all agreements we have, like ICCM 5, Inc. 3, that usually the discussions go until late in the last day. I have a story here that I want to share with you. My colleague Mulebo Heng from Lesotho, on the 30th of September in Bonn, 9 o'clock, she asked me if in the room was somebody from WHO. Why she asked that question? Because we have been sitting in that room for more than 24 hours. And she said, where are the human rights? And where is WHO? since we have been sitting in this room since yesterday, 8 o'clock. And this brings us to reflection. We have to change the way we organize the meetings in the UN system, because it's against the human rights, which UN advocate. For this meeting, most of the African delegates, they have their flights. They are on Ethiopia Airlines, which is Saturday, 1 a.m. And the airline recommends that we have to be at the airport 3 hours before for the security searching and whatever. And most of the delegates are staying this side of Nairobi. In order to get to the airport, we take 3 hours. 3 plus 3, already 6 hours. In order for us to get our luggage from the hotels, we have to leave this place 1 hour before. So already 7 hours. Meaning that on Friday, Madam Chair, there is no condition for us Africans to attend meeting after 5 p.m. because we need 7 hours prior to our flight. So I don't know how you will solve this issue. And I recommend that if not in this meeting, in next meetings, people come and solve. When they come to the meeting, they have solved their problems. We spend 1 day here to solve a problem that was supposed to be solved somewhere else, not here. We Africans, we have a saying, dirty clothes are washed at home.
Sorry, can you round up? We have a clock
Yeah,
ticking.
it's the very same clock that's made us stay here one day. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, but we will not deny us the right of expressing ourselves. Because we spend
Angola,
here, Madam...
I have heard you and I will respond to
Madam
you.
Chair, sorry, we spent 1 day here dealing with issues which were not concerning for us Africans. And we have been here and we helped you to solve that problem. So please, let us express ourselves. We respect your authority. But we spent a full day here solving problem which we didn't create, but we called to bring the solution, and we helped you to find the solution. And from the speech from Nigeria said, okay, treat us equally. So give me 2 more minutes to finish, please. So this is the situation we have, and we appeal that we can finish whatever agreement we reach or not at least 5 p.m., the latest 6 p.m. on Friday. Anything which will be decided after that time doesn't engage African region, and Africa will be ready to go wherever to not agree with whatever will be decided after that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angola, for that point. I do believe that when you received the invitation for this meeting, the time schedule was set until Friday evening, 6 o'clock. I'm just keeping this in mind. I have heard you in terms of the flights that have been arranged, and you can guarantee how the easier that I can leave, the earlier that I can leave this room, I'll be super happy, because I have been sitting in this room, I think, for the past 6 years, not necessarily in this place, but then in those places. So you can have my guarantee that I will do whatever I can to help us move through this meeting as quickly as possible. But I will also put it to you, I'm in your hands. So, as I said, when I wanted to conclude, or when I responded to the updates of the contact group facilitators, I have requested them to finalize their work this evening to be able to have us consider this as a basis, or to feed in as a basis for the work that we continue in the next session. So hopefully, if you come out with the contact group with a document that carries your views, that where you have been able to possibly come to consensus, then hopefully it shouldn't be taking a lot of time in our plenary to then carry them forward, right? But that's also up to you. So I will keep this in mind. I cannot give any guarantee because it's not entirely in my hands, but I think everybody has heard this, and I'm quite sure that everybody has had the experience that you had. I had the same experience of being in one room 24 hours in a row. It's part of our jobs, but if we can prevent it, we should do that. So thank you for that. So having heard the updates of the different facilitators, I suggest that I come back with Sudan. Did you want to have the floor, Sudan?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad.
Thank you, Chair. In the name of Allah the Merciful. Chair, I've noticed that we have focused very little on training and technology transfer and exchange of expertise and knowledge. In Africa and developing countries, we have a great need for all this. How can we build capacity if we don't have technology, science and knowledge necessary in order to address all these issues and to soundly manage the environment so that we can eliminate pollution due to chemicals and waste? Chair, we are simply consumers of these substances. We do not produce all of these harmful substances. Therefore, developed countries need to work more on technology transfer. This is an issue of morals, and which should be a guarantee for developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm quite sure that everybody has heard that, so they can carry this with them when they get into the relevant discussions. I have now Switzerland asking for the floor, and then I want to move to agenda item 5. So Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to take this opportunity to express a few points. We welcome very much the good progress and the good discussions that were made in contact groups 1 and 2. And we want to highlight and thank the engagement and very good work of the facilitators of those groups, and want to thank for the constructive engagement of colleagues in the room. The ongoing work on the text is important, and we encourage us all to come to text that can be moved into the agreed skeleton outline tomorrow. And in this context, we note the important role the text prepared by the Secretariat has played in the contact groups, and for us in these rooms to base our discussions on and work on the text. This week we have successfully engaged with the text of, for example, on conflict of interest, which corresponds to current Annex 5. We will resume on that once we reach OEWG 3. With regards to the parts where there is currently no text available, that is for what is currently called Annex 1, Annex 2, Annex 3, Annex 4, it would therefore be helpful if the Secretariat would be tasked to provide some text for the open-ended working group to consider. And this should be prepared within the next few weeks in order to be uploaded early on for all stakeholders to consider and to be discussed, ideally in regional dialogues, to collect views informally, and therefore well ahead of the last OEW session in June. So thanks for the opportunity to share these views. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. And just to confirm, indeed, the idea is that the outcomes will fill the skeleton as you suggested. And thank you also for that suggestion for potential intersessional work. For the Secretariat to provide further texts for consideration for those annexes that have currently no text. And if there is no disagreement about that, then I would suggest that this request will be reflected in the, let's say, outcome of contact group 4 that will be considering intersessional work, also including based on the outcomes of the identification of intersessional work prepared by the other contact groups. So in fact, you made a quite nice bridge to agenda item 5, where we had set out a contact group, number 4, that would consider intersessional work, as well as look at the budget in case there need to be changes made following up on the requests of intersessional work. I do believe that there may be Saudi Arabia. Can I finalize my introduction? Thank you. So I think there's a couple of areas that we may want to consider for intersessional work, given the fact that this open-ended working group prepares for the intergovernmental meeting that we have asked the executive director to organize, to establish the panel. And to establish the panel by the intergovernmental meeting, there needs to be a resolution or a decision to establish that would then of course, refer to or incorporate the document that we had included in the skeleton outline, in particular sections A, B, C, and D, as well as if you have agreed on, or if you have a proposal for the rules of procedure and other work-related processes, you may wish to have them recommended for the intergovernmental meeting, to have the intergovernmental meeting recommend those documents for the panel to consider and adopt them. So, giving you the outline of the flow of events, I do believe that this also needs to be considered in the discussion on intersessional work on how to prepare ourselves for the development of such draft decisions or proposals. You also may wish to think about what needs to be arranged for once you have identified the secretariat that would support the panel for the intersessional period to prepare for the first session of the panel's governing body to adopt all those documents. And there may be further thoughts that are just technical exercises to ensure that following the establishment of the panel can hold its first meeting. So I would suggest that also this will be addressed in the contact group that will address intersessional work, and that is my introduction, and I now give the floor to Saudi Arabia, who may wish to express his thoughts about that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. And thank you for the proposal and the proposed roadmap into the intersessional work. I believe, as we agreed, yet we haven't had a list of those proposed intersessional work that been discussed in different groups. And I hear my colleague and also his suggestion. I think the way it was proposed at the beginning, which is exactly the same way you proposed, we would like to see those intersessional work that will help us to bridge the gap into the next session. Having said that, we raised the same concern when we started, that we might, by the end of the week, not have a substantial work and completed items regarding the institutional arrangement. There was an excellent progress in contact group number 1. However, the way we see contact group number 2 is still way from reaching a solid proposal that agreed. What we had a text that you can't even skip one para without so many brackets into it and divergent of views. So we believe that today, as you indicated earlier, is the end of the contact groups, and we would like to see a summary where we stand on these contact groups, and also what are these proposed intersessional topics that believe that will bridge us between 2 and 3, and then look into how we can actually reach a consensus. What are these priorities? I hope this is very important for us, because we need to understand there's a limited time that we can do intersessionally, and we would like it to be very effective. I heard that you also addressed the issues that will intersessionally take us even after session number 3. And I think we should worry and give the priority now what to bridge us between 2 and 3, rather than having everything prepared for the INC 3. And since we discussed INC intergovernmental negotiation, I believe we need to reassess after session 3 what is the progress, because we don't know even if we're going to be there. If we are perfect, that's what we want, and then we will go into negotiations to establish the panel. But we should plan ahead, that we allocate enough time between the session 3 and the negotiation in case there is final tuning and tweaking here and there. There will be a time for us to do so. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. I did hear you. I also did hear that before Contact Group 4 can start its work, there's a need for the different contact groups to have their reflections so that can feed in, so that in Contact Group 4 you have a full picture, including on what needs to be done to prepare for the third session. And I also heard you that we may want to have a reflection on when to assume or desire to have this intergovernmental meeting be held, which may also be something that would be worthwhile considering. We will be reflecting on what is the best place to have that exchange. We may have time maybe also tomorrow when we have a better picture of the different outcomes, as well as the consideration of intercessional work, and we may have that reflection to also understand whether we haven't missed any task that we could identify that can facilitate our work in the next session. So with that, I would conclude for now consideration of agenda item 5, and as agreed, we would let's say instruct, sounds like instruct, inform the co-facilitators of Contact Group 4 on the elements that they need to already take into account, including the suggestions to request the Secretariat to provide those texts that have not been addressed in Information Doc 10 or its annexes, as well as to address intercessional work to prepare us for the decisions that or resolutions that need to be considered for the intergovernmental meeting, and any other intercessional work that is suggested by any of the contact groups. If I see no further requests, then that is so decided. Let me now move to agenda item 6, where I would point to, sorry, I don't know exactly the number, maybe somebody from the Secretariat can update us, but I know that an advanced English version of the provisional agenda for the next session is available. I know that the version in languages will be available this afternoon, but if all of you have been able to consider the document, we could either agree to the proposed provisional agenda. If not, I have just made you aware of the document so that we can come back when we get back to plenary tomorrow. It is now on the screen, so let me just see if we can move quickly. Can I ask if the working group can adopt the provisional agenda for the third session of the ad hoc open-ended working group on a science policy panel to contribute further to the sound management of chemicals and waste and to prevent pollution as submitted as CRP1 for this meeting. Is there an issue? Antigua and Barbuda?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. If on the left, upper left of the document, the date, there's some clarification on the date. This is
yeah, I see. It indicates the date of the meeting this week, but it might have to be the next session, so it needs to be Geneva. We'll sort it out. I think it might be for the CRP. It is indicating that this is a CRP that has been drafted during this meeting. That is my understanding. And that the final document, of course, will reflect the dates for the Geneva meeting as we have decided upon them in June. So I'm quite sure that when it is annexed to the report of our meeting, that will reflect the date for the meeting. If I see no further request for the floor, I conclude that we can adopt the agenda. And I think that concludes the work for our meeting today, and we will take minutes to provide you with the schedule for the contact group work today. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Well, I had promised that Romania would be able to provide an announcement briefly before I adjourn, and we are just in time. Romania, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. It's just an organizational info. Dear colleagues from the EG, I invite you to an ad hoc regional meeting. It will be in conference room 7 from 8:30 to 2. We have certain topics that we wish to discuss with you and have your feedback. So again, dear colleagues, conference room 7 from 1:30 to 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm quite sure that everybody heard that, and with that I would like to adjourn this session. Thank you.